Hello, everyone, and welcome to day 4. The week is just whizzing past. I hope that you have managed to get some things done yesterday that felt productive and that you maybe felt even inspired to keep schedules in different ways and even had some time to plan ahead for the busy term in terms of fun and sleep and deadlines. Today, we're going to kind of change focus a little bit, and we're going to be looking at another part of the Atomic Habits framework. So we've been looking at making schedules visible, and now we're going to be looking at making systems easier. So I am sure that you have shared this experience too, where you have often felt like a bit of a broken record. That even if you have great study spaces and a calendar with all the deadlines up and everyone is aware of all of those things that are visible, that it still feels like you still feel like a broken record because you are the one who is reminding everyone to get things done. And that might be in terms of lots of different ways. So maybe something doesn't get started until you remind them, or that there's a chore or a piece of homework that needs to be broken down into smaller, more specific instructions. So today we're going to look at how can we tweak our environment to make our systems a bit easier and maximize ease in our systems. So, some of you will know that I have recently moved back to the UK, and I have spent the last month or two um, creating my new home and getting to know the area, and it's all been really lovely. I've really enjoyed it. And I've spent quite a lot of my first month contemplating where should the kettle go in the kitchen, because the kettle is of utmost importance and makes lots and lots of cups of tea to get through the day. And so its position is crucial. It needs to be close enough to the tap and to the tea and coffee and, very importantly, the biscuits. And this has really kind of led me to think about all of the systems that we create every day in our environments to make things easier for ourselves, because we're creatures of habit and we want things to be close by, and we follow the path of least resistance. So if something's not there, then we'll forget about it. And um, what we want to do today is to really think about, well, what can we tweak in our environments to help our kids to be more successful and to not feel like a broken record. So we are going to be thinking a little bit about how to make things more accessible. So is there something that is a constant obstacle in some way? A laptop charger that's in the wrong place, or a laundry basket that never gets used? Or do you have some kind of system to get your kids to clear the dishes away? What small changes can you make to make your environment easier? So, some things to think about. Obviously, the most obvious place to start is to think about study spaces. I remember a student telling me that her big obstacle was her laptop charger being in her bag when she came home from school, and forgetting to bring it upstairs to her bedroom. And then when her laptop got to a low charge, going downstairs to retrieve that laptop charger was just in the hard basket, and it didn't get done. And then she forgot, and then her laptop would die and she wouldn't get her homework done, and then go to school without her laptop being charged. And it's those kind of little things that we want to think about. So one of the things that I want you to do today is, with your child, to do a little bit of an inventory on study spaces and think about how can you optimize that. Is it comfortable? Does it have the right lighting? Is it inviting? Has it got a good internet connection? Has it got all of the necessary equipment so they're not wandering around the house and getting distracted? Um, all of those kind of things. Okay. So, also, the one thing I found really useful is having a whiteboard, so that it's really clear, all of those visible things that we talked about yesterday, it's just up there, and they don't have to go looking for it anywhere, that they can have a look and see what is it that they need to get done. As you're doing this, make sure that you do this with your child, and don't assume that you necessarily know what works for them in terms of study spaces and what's best for them, or what's best for them at all times. Okay, so for example, my son is about to start online school, and I'm working from home, and we have spent a lot of time thinking about spaces to work. And I've created this really lovely study which has got lots of light, which has got all of the equipment that we could possibly need. It's great, and it's got comfortable seating. It's got all of those things. But there are still times when I prefer to sit on a cushion at the coffee table in the front room, or like I am today, sitting in the kitchen. And so maybe you need to think about creating zones for different tasks, um, and thinking about that a little bit, that we don't always want to sit at a desk and work. We do need a little bit of movement and that kind of thing. Um, I used to work at a really lovely school, which had this big open learning space with no walls and lots of different options for students to work in different ways. And they could work in groups, and they could work alone. And one of the teachers there, I learned so much from him. Every day, he would say to students, probably 100 times a day, so, in this task, where do you think you will be the most productive in this task? And sometimes that was on a beanbag working with your friends, and sometimes it was at a desk in total silence. And so that's something to consider, particularly if your child has ADHD. Sometimes actually working in the bustle of the dining room, where people are moving around, can actually really, really help them to focus. Um, so have a conversation with your child about all of those different activities that they might do, and collaborate together and create spaces that work for them. Um, yeah, and have fun with that. One of the other areas that I feel very much like a broken record is when I'm giving instructions about chores. Okay, so true story. Recently, I said to my children, I'm going out now. Can you please empty the recycle bin and the bin while I'm out? And they did it. It was great. But what I didn't say was, and can you then put in a black plastic bag into the bin, replace the plastic bag? So when I came back, the bin was a mess because they had continued using it. Um, and it was all a bit of a disaster. And I learned that my instructions just weren't specific enough. And that's particularly true if your children are neurodivergent. They don't pick up on context clues, and they need really, really specific instructions. So I've created this list. So here's our weekly planner, and I've written on the right hand side, this is what done looks like. And that is a really important question for your toolkit, sorry. What does done look like? What does clearing up after a meal look like? What does tidying your room look like? And that's a big one, the tidying your room. If you say to your kids, go tidy your room, they probably have no idea what that means. You need to be more specific and say, do A, B, and C. So, are there any things like that in your house that where you need to be a bit more specific? How could you make those tasks more accessible? Is there a reward that you could add to it to make it more satisfying? And this checklist, this weekly on my weekly planner, has been really great for both them and me, because now I don't feel like a broken record. and they have somewhere where they can go and check to see if they are being successful. And that's really important. So, thinking about all of this, maybe you need to go back and look at some of the things that we were looking at yesterday, look at those resources and think about, okay, so now I have made those things visible. How can I make them accessible? Do I need a checklist for something? And maybe you don't. Maybe your kids are great at putting those things together and knowing what to do. And so the challenge there is there a routine where your child does something perfectly if you remind them? And now, are they ready for you to give them the reminder, the job of remembering? So, how can you outsource that reminder to them and have conversations around, could you stack that habit with another habit? Do you need an alarm? So, like for my youngest son, he really needed reminders about evening routines, and then he got really good at it when I reminded him, like, can you now go and have a shower? And he would do that, and he would do all the things that come along with that habit. And then I got to a point where I was like, okay, I'm tired of reminding you. How can you remember yourself? And so he got to a point where he was like, okay, I'm now going to I'm now going to put an alarm on my phone so that at this time I go and do that task. And I'm out of the equation now. He can do that independently. And he then realized that using an alarm was a great way to remember things. And he now uses it for other things. So, is that a conversation that you could have with your children? So, also thinking about academic tasks and how to make those more accessible. You might have a timetable and a schedule of, my child's going to work on their history essay or their English essay or whatever on this day at this time. But what does that mean? So one thing that I've been doing with my coachees is to make the study session really specific. And so they need to answer the questions: what task are you going to do? What resources do you need? How long are you going to spend on it? And so so at the start of the study session, they would say, I'm going to watch this video and make notes for 30 minutes. So what do I need? I need this video. I need this worksheet from my teacher. I've got everything that I need. I know what I'm going to do, and I know how long I'm going to spend on it. And that makes that more specific and accessible and rewarding, because at the end of that session, they are clear about whether they've done it or not, because it's tangible. Now, if your children don't know how to break down a task, a great thing for you to look at is Goblin Tools, which is an AI tool where you can write in the task and it will break it down into chunks for you. And it will even estimate how long it will take you to do. And this has been a total game changer for so many of my students, and it really helps with time management. So maybe that's something that you want to have a look at with your child in today's task. So today is all about environmental changes. And you can go off in any direction that you want, or that you feel that you need to. Maybe revisit some of the materials that we looked at yesterday. Do you need to create some checklists for chores? Are there things that you can do to make learning easier? Do you need to think about study spaces and design those with your child? So go off in any direction that you want today, and let me know what it is that you have got up to by posting something in our group on Facebook. I look forward to seeing your work, and I'll see you tomorrow for our final session. Have a good day.